have some fun. And so we're excited to have this really stellar team that Candace has convened together. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Candace, who will be organizing and sort of like orchestrating our Ignite sessions.
Okay, we are going to get started. So welcome. Let me get it on slideshow. To our Ignite session. I don't know how many times we've done this. Can't say it like the Shark Tank, so I'm not sure. I want to share with you our rules that we were all following. And I also want to just point out that these are called Ignite sessions from an organization that kind of put this idea together. And the tag phrase is enlighten us, but make us quick. So you're gonna get some new ideas today, have your mind kind of blown. You're gonna leave having to think about things. But our rules are that we each have 20 slides in our presentation, and we are doing it for 20 seconds, and it is auto advanced. So hopefully we'll keep up with everything, but who knows? The slides are going to keep going, and we will have to keep going also. You're going to hear some fabulous presentations. I'm looking forward to all of these. The first from Christine Slade and Christina Hoffner on digital ethics in the ePortfolio Task Force, from Cindy Stevens on digital self-identity and ePortfolio assessment matrix, from Sonia Taylor from folio thinking to social media, there and back again, and from Patsy Polly, an education-focused academic fellowship program to, I can't read my own thing because my thing's in the way, to do something systematic approach to ePortfolio pedagogy and practice. That you get the award for the longest title, Patsy. And then myself and Melissa Peary are going to do a session on growing the garden of integrative learning, composting as a metaphor for folio thinking. So with that, we are going to ignite. And I do want to point out that a real Ignite presentation is 20 slides and 15 seconds. We agreed on, because we're academics, we had to have at least 5 more seconds per each slide. So it really is going to be we each get a little over 6 minutes, but we can do it. And each of us are going to kind of go through our slides and then turn it over to the next person. So the first person we're going to do, or first presentation we're going to do, is with Christine and Christina. Okay, ready, set, go.
Okay. Welcome to our brief overview of the ABLE Digital Ethics in ePortfolio Task Force. We will highlight key learnings, including the focus each year, achievements, dissemination opportunities, and logistical challenges of working across the world. Finally, we'll share takeaways and tips and upcoming events. My name is Christine Slade, and I'm an academic in the Institute for Teaching and Learning Innovation at the University of Queensland in the northern part of Australia. I've been involved with institutional ePortfolio implementation since 2012, assist with ePortfolio Australia Forum, and publish in the sector.
Kia ora. I'm Christina Höppner and have been a task force member since 2019. I'm the project lead for the Mahara ePortfolio platform and work in Te Whanganui, Atara, Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand, enjoying winter temperatures right now. I've been in the ePortfolio world for about 14 years. The ABLE Digital Ethics Task Force usually has about 11 members, so far from organizations in the States, Australia, and New Zealand. This year, Megan Haskins, Megan Mice, and Sarah Sohelen are our co-chairs who lead the task force capably.
In 2019, ABLE put out a global call to ePortfolio educators and administrators to form a digital ethics task force to address international concerns for support about ethical questions in ePortfolio use. The rapid transition to remote teaching during COVID has exacerbated this need. The task force identified ePortfolio stakeholder groups, including institutions, administrators, educators, students, and vendors, as well as choosing the most important topics to include in the first round. In 2020, the members created and published version 1, outlining 10 principles. In the second year, the task force continued to bring together scholars and practitioners to add 3 more principles: evaluation, practices that encourage diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and decolonisation, and the visibility of labour. The results of the Digital Ethics Principles and ePortfolios version 2, designed to be available in an online interactive format and as a downloadable full version. Each of the 13 principles include a rationale, helpful strategies and example scenarios, and resources for different stakeholder groups. Now concluding its third year, the task force is focused on sector support and multi-university research project. Members work across 4 groups: development, education, promotion, or research. Workshops are in progress and publications are available.
It is important to us that the principles that we develop are not static documents, but that they are revised and iterated over continuously to stay relevant to our community. By bringing in new task force members, we also get new perspectives and can view the principles through different lenses. This year, we facilitated workshops every other month. We will also offer workshops in collaboration with ePortfolios Australia and ePortfolio Ireland. These webinars are opportunities for us to learn what all of you know around the topics, where we are missing things, and what we could add. Now, let's take a look at a few logistical items. Organizing synchronous meetings has not been easy. When it is the end of the workday at 5 p.m. on the East Coast in the States, it's already 9 a.m. for me, but only 7 a.m. for Christine the following day. A time zone planner certainly became our best friend. Since it is not always possible to meet with everyone at the same time, all of our meetings are recorded, and one of the co-chairs provides minutes after the meeting that include timestamps, which point then to the recording for easy access. This is necessary to ensure that everybody can catch up and stay informed. We have a shared workspace where we collect all our documents and where we use suggesting and commenting functionality to quickly see when changes have been made. Being able to see all documents makes it easy to share them with everyone on the task force without needing to worry about extra permissions. A fourth point is efficiency. We established a color palette based on the colors of ABLE, selected a couple of fonts, and created template slides that we use consistently. That is not to take away, though, from personal preferences for visuals in presentations.
The task force members also enjoy some fun cross-cultural anecdotes. For example, Labor without the U and Labor with the U, which was interesting during the Australian elections, or the IRB Ethics Committee versus Human Ethics Committees in Oz. I've had to start my work calendar at 6 a.m. so I don't miss a meeting. It's been a rich experience working iteratively with a diverse group of experts in their fields, developing a collection of wisdom and knowledge, then engaging with the sector for feedback and input. So it's an important topic can become part of the broader conversation. So here's a few tips for a successful collaboration. Keep the suite of shared communication tools narrow and easy to find. Use a reliable time zone converter. Split the whole group into smaller groups and assign dedicated leaders to each of these to keep them on track.
Now, if you want to join the conversation, you can sign up for one of our August workshops on the topic of sustainable ePortfolio practice. In October, we are planning 2 workshops on accessibility, and in December, one on author rights and reuse permissions. All are or will be advertised on the ABLE website. Now, since we are approaching the end of year 3, the end of the Northern Hemispheric summer in August, we are looking for ePortfolio enthusiasts to join the task force. In year 4, we will continue to focus on development, education, promotion, and research. So if you are interested, please join us and reach out.
Well done. Hey, I forgot to mention that we will save questions for the end of our session. So if you've got some questions for Christine and Christina, write them down quickly before I turn it over to Cindy Stevens.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen. If something goes wrong or you can't hear me, please let me know. But as soon as I do presentation mode, I'll begin. Hopefully everyone can see this okay. I am Cindy Stevens from Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston. My presentation is Digital Self-Identity, an ePortfolio assessment matrix. I'm a professor of management, operations, and project management, and I love what I do, and I'm the only one that is working on any kind of ePortfolio efforts at Wentworth. As you can see, my school is right in the heart of Boston. In the arrow, you can see the quad, our beautiful quad. If you visit our campus in about 5 years, it's going to look totally different. We are tearing down buildings, modernizing our campus, but we are in the heart of the city, which is fabulous. Focusing on our business management students, their ePortfolio initiatives that they are required to focus on research, writing, group dynamics, leadership, professional development, and communication. We thought that it would be very career focused if we maintain those areas, but starting to find out that we are missing the boat. So I started to do a little bit of research and make some connections to ePortfolio initiatives, and I found the World Economic Forum top 10 skills needed for 2025 and beyond, really. This is their most up-to-date report. And then these are the 10 areas that you're seeing, leadership, creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving. When you go into the World Report, they break down the skills into the 10 areas with full descriptions. And I know you can't read this all right here on this slide, but it is in the report, and it's also in my published article on AEP. But analytical thinking, analyzing information. They also break down the skills into 4 categories. Another researcher named Whiting that I found in 2020, she's done extensive research on this, was able to connect those 10 areas to problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology use and development. And as you can see, problem solving is the most. So I was able to take 4 ePortfolio award-winning portfolios from our school that are cash prizes that were given to our students and analyze. Diana is from the Bronx, New York. She is a commuter student. She loves to golf, rock climb, and she is one of our rock star students that recently graduated. Justin, he is also one of our rock star students. He's from Connecticut. He's a management major. He's the president of the SAM Club, Student Association of Management Club, and he loves to drive his Tesla and spend time with his family and also volunteering. He was a real help for 4 years with our SAM Club. Shannon is from New Jersey. She's also a management major. She loves snowboarding, hiking, baking, spending time with her family and friends, and she concentrated in project management and also in communications. She's also one of our awesome students. She was also part of the SAM Club. And Emma was our 3rd winner. Again, these are cash prizes, $100, $50, and 2 $25 prizes. Emma's also management. She's an entrepreneurship concentration. She wants to work in a marketing firm, but she also wants to open up her own business one day. And also she wants to move to Colorado, which is probably a fantastic place to live. So I was able to dig down into their 4 ePortfolios and analyze them with this matrix that you see on the screen. And obviously I'm not going to go through every one of these bullets, but one of the main things I want to point out that I have circled here is that by reviewing and really digging into their portfolios, you can see that they do fulfill problem-solving areas, which is one of the big areas for these skills and these categories from the World Economic Forum. So some of the artifacts that you can see, whether they're artifacts or whether they're just information, listing, reflections, could fit into multiple categories. And some of them I did fit into multiple categories. But the main area that you see is problem solving, that they're hitting all those areas. But they're also displaying artifacts and other types of information for the other areas, self-management, working with people, technology use and development, which is great. Through, artifacts of papers, research papers, co-ops, memberships of clubs, other types of leadership things. But all 4 students really nailed it with the problem solving area and were able to display that they were, making connections and showing those areas of reflection for problem solving. So just to break down a few of them, for example, with Diana, one of the things that caught my attention is that she is really engaged with problem solving. She has a lot of initiative. Rock climbing, if anybody has ever done that before, is very hard. You have to solve your way to the top, and it shows a lot of initiative. So for career employers could find that very interesting. For Justin, he really reflects self-management and resilience and flexibility. Through that, he displayed that in his e-portfolio through being the president of the Student Association of Management Club for all 4 years. And at this point, he's also volunteered for the Special Olympics for now going on 13 years. And then our third student, as an example of working with people as a category that displayed leadership and social influence, she was able to be in a fellowship with women that foster scholarship and wanted to have a social time with that. And they also did several fundraisers. And then lastly, a skill sample for technology use and development. Shannon, our last student, displayed that in her e-portfolio by having some reflection on her entrepreneurship final project, which was a technology-based entrepreneurial project, and they developed an app. So what's next for our program? There's several things that we need to look at: new projects, group activities, leadership opportunities. But I also want to point out there's actually 5 World Economic listings that we need to really dig into, and I need to analyze portfolios to see if they're hitting them, like emotional intelligence, service orientation, negotiation skills. So this is a fun project, and I can see taking this into more research and really digging in here and making some more connection to different type of learning styles. And my email is there if you do have any questions, and I'm sure there might be some questions at the end, but I'm going to continue to focus on this and conduct research in this area. So thank you.
Excellent job, Cindy. Boy, we're not embarrassing ourselves at all.
We're not. We did great today.
I know. Okay, Sonia, now it's your chance to embarrass yourself. I'm looking forward to hearing from my colleague.
I was going to say, you don't speak too soon. I'm still ready to go.
Okay.
I heard from my student, she is all right. She got hijacked by her family. She's a high school student, so those things can happen. So I mentioned in the chat that I don't follow directions, so it's going to be a standard Ignite presentation, and I don't know if I can get, I have it timed, but will it start the whole thing? Okay, so I'm going to embarrass myself. I did my presentation on a new summer program that we started at PSU called Inquiry for Justice. You can actually follow the social media at Instagram, I4J PDX. We have a dual credit program called Senior Inquiry that is a year-long seminar-based course where our students earn dual credit. And we got a grant from Teagle for $300,000 for 3 years to do this knowledge for freedom based course called Inquiry for Justice. And we got 20 students to come to campus for 2 weeks and stayed in dorms. And we designed our course around 2 case studies: Vanport, which I don't know if you know the history, if you're from another part of our globe, but Vanport was a small community built in the end of World War II to build ships. And it became a very diverse community, and then it flooded. And both the building of the city and what happened after the flood exacerbated segregation in our city. So that was our first site for a case study. And then, here's a little meta moment of teaching folio thinking in the classroom in my social media. The second case study we looked at was internment camps in Japan in our local involvement with that. So students, we talked about justice. What is justice? What does it mean? What is injustice? What does repair look like? And they also lived on campus, so they got to acclimate to college life and take part in the different activities around PSU. And on the last day, I got to go bowling with some of them, which was super fun. And a while ago, Candace and I and Melissa had done a lot of thinking about and presenting about how using social media can be a precursor to folio thinking. And I would like to suggest that actually it's kind of reciprocal, and it can go both directions, and hopefully could go actually from folio thinking to social media, because then maybe we could have some more intentional social media interaction and presence. And so we had our students build digital archives of their learning, and we documented all of the time and we posted on Instagram. And so the whole class was iterative. There was folio thinking. There was very explicit conversations about digital presence and digital identity. We had them do their digital footprint and talk about that. And then you know, it was all documented on Instagram. So I was like, oh, well, we did the folio thinking first, and then here we have it going on to social media, and how, and so I just thought it's a great example of how you can go that direction. This is coming to the end of their time with us, and you could also follow the I4J PDX handle at Instagram if you're interested. I'm sure we're going to meet with them all year, so there'll be monthly, probably photo dumps. We actually did in between the 2 weeks, we went to a local state park and we met another program that is at George Fox University that's partnered with another high school, and their students met with us at PSU. We did a tour, and then we all went to the park and had a picnic and played games and did stuff together. And these are our students and the other group of students in these pictures. So they got to meet other students from another high school and actually show them our university. There were a lot of great bonds formed. I think we got a lot of good feedback. It was the very first year we've done this program, and really a lot of positives on feeling like there was belonging. The one suggestion was better food, so we're gonna have to work on that. We spent time in, you know, we tried to do a lot of field trips, went to the different sites, went to Historical Society, looked at original documents in the city archives, another bit of folio thinking, adding the, you know, making the connections between not only different contexts in the students' lives, but different times, and thinking about, you know, our past and where we are and what we want to do in the future. And then at the end of the experience, we had like a graduation ceremony and certificates and cords. So it was super awesome and fun. And we are hoping to scale it up to include more students next year. And it gave me a lot to think about. Some of the students talked about when we did their digital footprint and their reflection, they were surprised at how many platforms they were involved in. So I think in one of the other sessions yesterday, I think there was a mention about like one of the students, I think it was in the student panel, said like they were more thoughtful about their social media presence as a result of their work in ePortfolio. And I think that those students all had a like kind of a like, oh, I'm actually more involved in the digital world than I thought I was. So that is it. And if you have questions, that's my email, and looking forward to it. I'll stop my share now.
Very, very good. So impressive. And obviously I'm on your social media network quite a bit because I was outed with lots of likes for me. So next we have Patsy Polly. Are you ready, Patsy?
The short answer is no, of course. Okay, let's try this. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep. Okay. Get going.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I won't repeat the title because it's way too long and I don't have much time, but this whole project started coming out of the Office of the Pro Vice Chancellor and Education Student Experience. And it came with the whole idea of bringing people together across faculties. So I have the privilege of representing my colleagues here. And the whole issue is about the student experience at UNSW and how to address that. So ePortfolios came into practice here as a strategic project. So the whole idea is to address this gap using ePortfolios, building student capabilities, and to harmonise across the university. And you've probably seen me present this triangulated form of our students, our graduates, what we like to see them as global citizens, scholars, leaders, and professionals. But the whole idea of the PVC ESE approach was a top-down and a bottom-up. So meeting halfway and in the middle to try and address what we need to do to get an ePortfolio system harmonised across the union. So there are many sorts of things that we have to think about in terms of the roadmap, but let's think about items 5, 6, 7, and 8, the how, and the so what. So the whole idea was to link curriculum to work readiness, postgraduate programs, and visualise our graduate attributes and capabilities, but also have an element of professionalism and reflective practice. So this is our roadmap. When students enter the university, they have to have this connection to place. We figure the ePortfolio may develop that for them and allow them to witness their development all the way through their degree program. So you can see various stages here across their degree program as mapped by us, the academic team, thinking about how to integrate their professional global citizen, scholar, and leadership development as they went through their program. So the whole idea is welcome to your future, and as you develop as a potential graduate, now you're ready for work. So you can see the 4 graduate attributes coming in highlight here along the way, along this roadmap. And of course, there's lots of mapping that happens along the way. Now, when we put our degrees into our academic board for degree programs for approval, we have to make sure we map our curriculum very carefully. But the so what bit is very important. What do you do with a portfolio? And this is the whole pitch that we have to bring back to the university. There's things like employment, which this audience knows very well, the placements, the transition to other areas and learnings and postgraduate studies. But what else? So we had to absolutely make sure we were mapping what we were talking about in terms of forming skills and attributes that met our graduate capabilities. So this work by Yoshi talked about mapping to science graduate attributes within optometry and vision science. And he did a very skilled mapping process where he was looking at the graduate attributes very carefully at a granular level within these 2 degree programs. Now, it's very odd for academics to sit down and do this, but the fellowship program allowed us some time and brought out some of our teaching time. So we got together and started to innovate and crosstalk across our disciplines and faculties. And we were mapping very explicitly assessment tasks back to these attributes, and we could find that skills were being developed as part of this whole process. Now, this is Peter Neal from engineering, and Peter did a deep dive into our CLIP system and our other university systems that link student grade books and information in terms of majors and so on back to the graduate attributes. And you can see these little hatched crosses here representing the different skill sets, similar to what Cindy talked about. So coming back to me, I like this triangle because it comes back to the whole idea of really forming that well-rounded student upon graduation according to the UNSW graduate attributes. So how do we populate these triangles? And I always talk about the signature skills. And those skills come back to things like teamwork, graduate attributes, things like critical thinking, knowledge acquisition, and so on. So I had this interesting project for 2 years where I was developing a series of badges to bring out the skill sets that could populate our triangle. And I applied the AAC&U rubric, which was modified for teamwork. And you've seen this information before. I've talked about the research we've done behind using rubrics such as this, but now we use rubrics in a different way and sit them behind the badge. So it becomes a really rich data source, a metadata source for students to talk about their qualitative as well as quantitative pieces of information that feed into a badge. So we mocked up a series of badges. We worked with a student from art and design. So we had a student as partner that could design our badges for us, that could represent the skill sets that we're talking about that sit behind the graduate attributes in that fabulous triangle. So here we are. If we click on a link, we can get the types of attributes we're talking about, skill sets, back from the rubric. And I worked with a partner, an industry partner called Edelex, and they actually developed a system called Credentialate out of this. So the whole concept of rubrics sitting behind the badge as data has gone to market actually with Credentialate. So it's really interesting. Students can now talk about their skill sets, talk about what they're planning to do, put these badges within their portfolio and have this ecosystem or constellation of badges that talk to their graduate attributes along their degree program journey. So you can see the curriculum mapping is very important. And to be honest with you, this is not news for this audience. But the other thing that's important is the whole idea of reflective practice and feedback. So that information I showed you previously in the slide before talked about Credentialate and how it went to market. But our key recommendation back to the PVC ESE was a hybrid e-portfolio pedagogy where we hybridize curriculum mapping with experiential learning, internal and external to UNSW, which is supported by feedback. Thank you very much, everybody. That was a bit quick.
Woo! You got through a lot.
I know.
And we're lucky that Kate found your presentation. We can hear more about it for a long period of time.
Yes,
that was great.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Okay, now it is Melissa and I that are going to, right? Aren't we? Yes, that is, we're next. Don't look surprised, Melissa. Okay, unmute yourself and get us going.
All right. You are ready to go, Candace.
Okay, welcome to our presentation. I'm Candace Reynolds from Boise State University, and I'm pleased to be joined by my colleague, Melissa Peary from Portland State and from PebblePad. We think that metaphors are excellent ways to help us understand complex concepts. So we're gonna use a metaphor. First of all, though, definitions. This is a simple formula for integrative learning, thinking about learning that we can take forward over time, learning across context, but also with intention. Another important concept for us to be looking at is folio thinking, and it is a clear aspiration we have for students. We want them to create this habit of mind, and we know that it is a process, and there are key elements in this process: collection, organization, reflection, and connection that leads to helping students understand their learning. This is a visual representation of that, and we're going to take you on this journey with our metaphor of composting as folio thinking.
So many of us have heard the metaphor that a rainbow can mean layered learning, and a potato can just be a full heart. And growing up rural and without access to formal education, metaphors were a really important part of my strategies to quickly understand the attributes and the implications of the complex systems in the world around us. Yeah.
So here we're going to go with our metaphor. We have a composting bin here at the beginning of this journey, and we're going to collect many things in here. Within that composting bin, magic happens and something new develops. First, we get lovely soil, and then the soil is used to create a totally new outcome. So we see folio thinking as the oxygen which makes the changes within a compost bin. We see that as oxygen for integrative learning.
In a digital landscape, we create, manage, distribute, retrieve, and archive evidence of our accomplishments in learning every single day. But gathering evidence from all of these metaphorical tables for our compost bin can and does prove very challenging for us. It often occurs without intention. Many of the pieces of our digital evidence are swept into our compost piles, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And when collected and yet left uncurated, they will still certainly yield. Potatoes are a common occurrence in underdeveloped soil bins, but what could happen to the yield if we were more intentional? Evidence of learning takes many forms. The experiences and reflection on them represent the stories of our learning over time. They may be messy and unorganized and lacking cohesion, but they are there and waiting for us to rediscover them with intention and reflect on the meaning they have on our now and our futures. When we collect our pieces, stories, evidence, feelings, perceptions, and outcomes, and work to curate these with intention across time and context, much like composting, we begin to make something greater than the sum of all of the parts, a lineage of where we've been, who we are, and who we're becoming, and how all of these inform and support what needs to be retained and what needs to be transformed.
Okay, do you remember our journey of composting and of folio thinking? You'll remember that reflection is a big piece of this. And I'm going to be leading you through the process, the benefits of reflection and the benefits of reflection. First of all, one of the benefits is that it helps slow down activity. True learning happens when we have time to take in new information and process it. Reflection allows us to slow down and to make that happen. Unlike hearing a lecture or reading a text and then responding to a test, reflection allows learners to take in what they're learning and incorporate their learning in context. So it provides learners an increased sense of ownership of their own learning. Reflection encourages thinking about one's own thinking. This is really important because it allows actually learners to be able to reuse what they have already done. They can replicate the learning process in many different contexts. And lastly, we want to point out that reflection encourages learners to challenge their own thinking. Slowing down allows a learner to examine other perspectives and develop new ideas, much like a compost bin.
As we begin practicing folio thinking more regularly, it becomes a habit of mind, a necessary way to understand ourselves, our own experiences, and challenge ourselves. The practices of reflecting, connecting, and curating our lived experiences become the pitchfork we use to aerate the rich components of soil we are building and support our understanding of our wholeness. All of these practices and processes are undertaken in an effort to create a cohesive and rich soil in which to continue our learning journey. And although the soil we make is essential to our future yields, a day of preparing fresh soil for the next round of growth is in so many ways akin to a culminating portfolio that launches us into the next direction of our lives, such as the doctoral portfolio there. As we lay the soil for our next round of planting, we can hardly forget the practices that brought us to the beautiful moment of the next period of growth and new experiences in our life. Collecting, connecting, reflecting, and curating our lives for future growth and productivity.
So we want to end with inviting you to reflect on folio thinking and integrative learning through the lens of our composting metaphor, to really take it in. But we also want to invite you to consider your own metaphor to help you clarify your understanding about these concepts. And I can see in our chat that people have already started to do that, which is lovely. We all did pretty good. I'm impressed. Little crazy, I have two people doing it in 6 minutes, but there were two groups of us, and it worked out okay. Great. Now we have some opportunity. We have at least, it looks like 8 minutes for any comments or questions. And thank you so much for putting resources in the chat.
Someone asked back during my session if they could get to the live portfolios. I did put the link in there, but I'm going to do it again. Hopefully that works. It is through the ABLE website. Hopefully you can get to the article. And their URL addresses are there. If you can't get to that, maybe someone can help me, Candace maybe. It's at the ABLE website, all the journal articles that are there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Kate got it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and
And what
Cindy,
about
I also included the link in your abstract on the conference website, so people
Oh,
can click
perfect.
it there as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Great. And as the moderator, Helen, are you the moderator? You'll be collecting our chat.
Yes, I will do that, and we'll make those available along with the recording of today's session.
Okay, great. Any comments or questions for our presenters?
I would just like to say, I think we ended beautifully because I love ending on the metaphor Ignite talk. That was awesome. That was great thinking, Candace, if you came up with ending on yours and Melissa's last. I think that was just perfect.
Ours was a little more abstract and fuzzy, so
It
I
was
put it
good.
fast.
And I think too, when we talked about doing it together, I thought, well, Candace's voice is the voice in my head, y'all. She's been my mentor for 20 years plus almost, right? So if the two of us can't wind our shared stick together for 5 minutes, what good are we? And I'm really proud we did it. It was great.
There's a couple of us here that are on the practical, very analytical side of things. It was a nice balance.
Well, Kevin, I can't wait to read your book chapter. Kevin did a book chapter on horticulture and e-portfolios.
Called e-porticulture, which is better than hortitorture, which is the other thing I hear.
I think, Kate, the thing you said about being reminded of the need for time is like so important. And I think that school doesn't offer a lot of time for students to think and reflect. It's just one thing after another. And I think I have this conversation with my students every year. What's education? What's learning? Which one happens at school? And I don't know, but if anybody has brilliant ideas about how to encourage or advocate for more time across the board in our classes, that would be amazing.
Yeah, but even sorry.
No, go ahead.
But even Patsy's talk, like all that curriculum mapping only happened because they were able to get time allowance as part of the project. Do you know what I mean? Like all of these things that we really want to be able to do that really strengthen e-portfolio practice only happen when there's sufficient time. So yeah, I don't know how we get more time.
And in Candace's book, she has a little simple chart that talks about reflection. And the very first thing it says is set the tone, reflection matters. And I use that sentence all the time to say, is reflection an actual learning outcome? And if it's a learning outcome, it should be very clear and acknowledged. And there should be time and, compensation associated with that. So I think starting small, having these minute reflections, providing space every week or cyclically in the course, and making sure that they know that you're acknowledging that it's one of the more important outcomes of the course, maybe more important than any of the other ones, has been really helpful for me in teaching the master's courses in the College of Ed.
You bring up a very important point, Melissa, and this is what we're trying to bring to the university as a whole, that reflection and feedback should be incorporated. We always say feedback is incorporated, but the space and time to do it properly and for students then to use it and feed forward into their next set of subjects is super important. So yes, I also integrate time for students to reflect, and you can imagine STEM students pushing back a little bit here, but to give them time and to value it is the money shot, I think.
And I think it's like when you tell them that the outcome of reflection is self-management and self-assessing behaviors, and that those are potentially one of the most important infinite skill sets you can have, it becomes clear to them why you're asking them to do that. It just strikes me every time I come into this community and every time I work with an ePortfolio community, how often reflection and the technical skills required are hidden and not acknowledged. And the lack of acknowledgement, I think, catches people unaware, our learners. Let's be as acknowledging as we can about the goals of what we need to accomplish instead of hiding them. That's something that I see quite often.
So Melissa, I think you should be filling out the survey for the digital ethics group, because that's one of the things that we're talking about is the invisibility of labour. And I think it's so true in ePortfolio work for everyone, student, educator, whoever. But the other thing I was going to say, we have a fabulous staff member who I work with, who is our learning designer for ePortfolios, has done some fantastic work in actually operationalising this feedback that Patsy's talking about, you know, the ongoing feedback. And I think there's more to the fact there that we could link reflection. I mean, obviously they have to reflect to do that. So we have to, she's done some neat sort of practical ways with a journal and feedback forms that she's threaded through a program that the students then could use that to scaffold their reflection of different types of feedback, not just from an assessment task, but teaching them how to get value out of all the different feedback. And I mean, it'd be great. She's actually gone home to Canada to visit her family, but it would be great one day actually if we could share that, because I think when I look at that from someone who's been in ePortfolios a long time, that's the hard bit, isn't it? Is actually being able to put it in. And she's done some really nice work, which we'd be very happy to share, because this idea of the continuous feedback, we just haven't got it in our higher education institutions. But, you know, there's a lot being written about it in the last few years, but to make it happen is really difficult. So ePortfolios is a key part of that.
It's interesting too, when you think about the structures and mechanisms, how do we tell the students that we value ongoing feedback when the feedback we give them disappears 2 months later?
Yeah, totally. So it's structural. Yeah,
it's structural, you know, and again, we put these
Yeah.
systems in place to be very helpful, and yet have created almost a generation of digital helplessness in terms of equity for our learners. The power and control we have over the feedback and how long they have it and how they get it and all of that is in our hands. And I don't know that we really wanted it to be this way, but
totally.
now we're in that position.
Yeah, so that's where ePortfolios are a real key. You know, a tool to actually help that happen is actually there. We just haven't really applied ourselves, I suppose, to actually being able to do that. Yeah, so a whole new area of where ePortfolios could be normalized as such into a feedback process.
I feel very encouraged by the progress of ADA law and accessibility in the last few decades. You know, this is something where there was not someone advocating or representing those needs at the table formally for a very long time in higher ed. And what we've been able to do by having those needs represented and having policies for those is so encouraging. And I feel like it's no longer a hidden need. And so these hidden concepts of reflection, technology, efficiencies and proficiencies, as we begin to have more formalized areas responsible for the overarching progress of these on campus, I'm hopeful that we will also reach a level at which it's always considered, always represented, and there's always someone putting it forward at the table. Not just, and we are doing that now. I feel like all of us do that. But I think about, you know, Tracy or other people, there's one person at the organization, you're always the person trying to make sure it's on the table. So I look forward to a more unified approach for that for all of us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming and for the great discussion here at the end.
Great. Thank you so much to this fantastic, stellar team on this. I don't know why you guys are so nervous because it all seemed very seamless, you know, for those of us here in the audience.